Thank you, everybody, for being here. We're very excited to be able to provide you with tips and advice for bringing Let Grow to your school. So just to let you know, I'm Andrea Keith. I am the executive director. I've been with the company almost 5 years now, and I'll go into a little bit of my background in a minute. But let's start with the usual housekeeping stuff. Some things to know, some of which you probably have figured out already. You are welcome to have side chats and things like that in the chat box. I will, however, request that as we go along, if you come up with a specific question that you would like me or one of the panelists to answer, please put that in the Q&A. Our school programs director, Jen Sullivan, who is going to stay behind the scenes today, is keeping track of those questions, and she's going to help me with the Q&A section at the end. So if you put a question in the chat and not in the Q&A, it may not get answered because we may not see it. So I did mention earlier as people were coming in that this is being recorded. You will be sent a follow-up email tomorrow, and you will get probably a couple links if we mention anything in here, and you'll get a link to the recording. And then also for posterity or to share with your friends, it will also be posted on the webinars page that most of you probably visited to register for this webinar. If you hadn't noticed, there's a bunch of other webinars that have happened in the past, and we just leave those up there for people to access whenever it's convenient for them. So we're going to start with a bit of an overview. I'm going to give you guys some information. I'm going to introduce our panelists. They're each going to talk a little bit about their story themselves. We will make sure that we leave the last hopeful 15 minutes or so, 15 minutes to half an hour. We do expect to go to about 15 minutes after the hour, but that will definitely be an extension of Q&A time. And if you miss that, again, that will continue to be on the recording if you have to jump out early. So not knowing how familiar all of you might already be with Let Grow, I'm going to hazard a guess that a lot of you found us through Jonathan Haidt's new book, The Anxious Generation. That book does cover a lot of information, and he talks about 4 norms that he thinks we need to implement in this country. The first 3 are on phones. Let me tell you at the first part, while I agree with most of what he's saying, our organization doesn't necessarily have a stance on phones. We are not anti-cell phones. We are not anti-social media, can't afford to be, frankly, as an organization. Nowadays, we believe adults should certainly have the right to be on there, although I agree that kids should. But we don't necessarily recommend or insist that kids not have phones. It's definitely something that you can decide on your own. We understand that a flip phone or a smartwatch or something like that may be something that you need so that you feel comfortable letting your kids out to roam a bit and having some independence. And we'd certainly rather have kids outside with a phone in their pocket than not outside at all. So that's our general stance on the phones. But really, the most important part of what John Haidt's talking about in The Anxious Generation is once you take the phones away, or we hit the point where we're not giving them to them until they're older, that has to be replaced with something. And the idea is not that because you kids don't have a screen in front of them 24/7, that means you as a parent are now responsible for entertaining them. We believe that in the past, generations and generations, kids had free time. They were free to roam. They made up their own games. They got together with their friends. They built ramps. They built forts. They were outside. Some of you probably remember playing kick the can until the street lights came on and things like that. And we believe that the loss or the changes that have happened and have made it hard for child development to happen naturally. Kids don't have all of those experiences where they're negotiating for the kid who's got the good ball but nobody really likes, and all of those other making up the rules and all those kinds of things that come along with it. So Let Grow is out to make it easy, normal, and legal to give kids the independence they need to become happy, confident, and capable adults. That means that in our school programs, our efforts are really truly out to ultimately change society. We have 2 major school programs. The first one is the Let Grow Experience. The Let Grow Experience is a curriculum that basically revolves around a homework assignment that's go home, do something new by yourself without your parents' assistance or supervision, but with their permission. So we're not recommending that they build rockets and try to, launch themselves into space or anything. That's really designed to give kids the chance to step up and build some confidence, experience some failures, things like that. I think the program we'll talk most about today, though, will be along the lines of Play Club. The Let Grow Play Club is a program that encourages schools and other organizations who might have the types of facilities that would work to stay open before and after school or on weekends during the summer, so that kids can join the club. And the club is mixed age free play that is very loosely supervised. We basically say kids are going to solve their own spats. They're not going to be able to ask adults to intervene and decide what the rules are and what's fair and what's not. The idea is that there are a couple of supervisors who act more like lifeguards at the pool. Your lifeguard does not tell the kids, oh no, you must play that game this way, or intervene if somebody says, hey, somebody took my pool noodle. So lifeguard is the closest example that we have of what we want supervisors to do when kids are having mixed age free play. And that mixed age free play is mixed ages, like it would be if they were outside in their neighborhood. It is unsupervised, it is unstructured, it doesn't need any fancy parts or pieces. Kids like cardboard, they like sticks, they'll play with anything that they've got. We call those loose parts, and they don't have to cost a penny. So that's what Play Club is all about. And the idea of the schools being able to do it is it gives a safe place. We recognize that not all neighborhoods are safe enough for kids to be running around, though I'd venture to guess that most of your neighborhoods are safer than you think. Also, it allows them to have those relationships with kids who are older and younger, which is really nice. Not all kids are exactly the same at the same age. So there are older kids who maybe get along better with younger kids, and they get to be the role models, and the younger kids look up to the older kids, and it's just good for everybody. So that's what the Let Grow Play Club is. That's a high level overview. And what we're going to talk about today will be talking about how you as parents can encourage your school to start a play club or recommend the experience. So first I want to start, and I'm going to introduce our first guest speaker. Megan, if you want to go ahead and turn on your camera and unmute yourself, you can give everybody a wave. Megan Shahabi spent 12 years in K-8 schools as a teacher and administrator. For the last 3 years, she has served as a curriculum developer for an SEL program, sorry, hard to say, called Generous Students. Megan and her husband Ari live in Southern California and are parents to first grade twins. As an educator and parent, Megan is eager to empower her school and community to play more, be outside, and give kids a childhood filled with imagination, connection, and fun. Megan, can you turn on your camera? I've seen some folks popping in and out of the meeting. I'm concerned that perhaps there are some technical difficulties going on.
Hi, I'm here.
You can't start your video. She is.
Hi.
Apparently we were restricting you, Megan. Hi, Megan. Say hi.
Hi, everybody.
Our other guest is Alyssa. Now, Alyssa's our surprise guest because we didn't get her information quite quick enough to get in all of the information for pre-registration. But Alyssa Bost grew up in Indiana and lives in West LA with her husband and 2 daughters, ages 6 and 9. She's a former middle school math teacher with NYCDOE, so New York City Department of Education. Hey, got the acronym. And at a Jewish day school in the Westwood neighborhood of LA. She's currently a TK. What does T stand for, Alyssa?
That's just transitional kindergarten. So
transitional kindergarten. I wasn't familiar with that one. So transitional kindergarten through 5th grade substitute teacher at Wish Charter Elementary, where her daughters attend school. Alyssa is also a Girl Scout troop leader and coordinates children's Bible classes at her church. She just finished reading The Anxious Generation and is excited to bring Let Grow to Wish this fall. So welcome, Alyssa. We're very happy to have you guys. I'm going to start out with basically telling everyone how great it is that there are so many parents that are interested in wanting to bring Let Grow to your schools. I think it's amazing. I love the fact that we're seeing a lot of parent involvement going on, kind of a surge in that. In regards to that, I will tell you, I have been a parent and the school mom, the class mom for a while when I was a stay-at-home mom for my kids, who, by the way, are 30 and 33 now. So I can say I have successfully let them grow. And I've also been a substitute teacher like Alyssa, and I have been a classroom teacher. And then I went to the dark side and went from being a teacher to working for an education technology company, training teachers to use their technology, and kind of growing up through that startup company before I eventually landed here at Let Grow. So I have a lot of experience with not just relationships with the educators and the administrators, but my sales experience gives me a really unique perspective on some of these things. But I'm also thrilled to have some folks from the other side as well, because all of this can be a bit of a delicate dance. You know, approaching school administrators can be tricky. It's not necessarily as easy as throwing them a link or, showing up at the door with a stack of papers and, hey, this is great. This is amazing. You need to do this. I think all of us have had situations where when we're approached with an idea or a suggestion, we initially get defensive. It's very normal for us to initially feel like, wait a minute, if you're telling me that I need to do something or making a suggestion, my instinct is that you're telling me I'm doing something wrong, which is not necessarily true. And I can't get into a whole how to have crucial conversations and those kinds of things. But I can say the first thing to remember is that all of us are human. All of us want the best for our kids, for your kids. And that goes both ways. So we want to talk about how we can overcome maybe that first kind of initial, hey, wait a minute, parent coming in to tell me that I should have a new program. And by the way, is as similar as if you get something from a school where you think, wait a minute, why is the school telling me how to parent? So we kind of have to start with breaking down those barriers. So Megan, I am going to ask you to first share what is the most important thing that you think you have to start with if you're going to talk to an administrator.
Well, thank you for all of that overview. And that's just really helpful to hear all that. It's fun to hear about Let Grow's history and everything. I think something that's really important that school administrators really appreciate is that when parents come with a request or an idea, that they come with a posture of partnership, that it's not coming out of a place of complaining or deficit or what we don't have, or phrases like all the parents are talking and, just kind of this like negative tone, but come in as a partner, as a supporter, a champion of the principal, a champion of the school, really kind of a cheerleader that just wants to make it better and be a part of the good things that are going on. Mm-hmm. I think it is really helpful if you've already established your relationship with the principal. It's a good idea to already know them. And if you don't yet, start there just with, greeting and getting to know each other casually, but to come in just with a real sense of, I'm here to support the school and the mission of the school. Know the principal's, goals and the areas of focus that the school is working on. Most likely, a Let Grow Play Club is going to align with the goals and objectives that a school site has right now, because there's just so much focus on us really building kids who have strong character and connection with one another. So I would say come in as a partner, a supporter, and just have a posture that's ready to dive in and be a part of what they're doing.
I really like that you mentioned the starting a relationship first. It's hard. We've got a lot of working parents now, and it's really hard for a lot of parents to be involved with their children's school simply because of the timing. Yeah. But we have this wonderful thing called email. and telephones, but email is a really great way to even just start to build maybe some relationship. And just like anybody, you get to be friends first before you ask them for a favor. So, so it's not a bad idea to start that relationship. Have you had any experiences as an administrator with parents bringing things to you, either positive experiences or negative experiences?
Oh yeah,
Give us the
many.
dirt.
Well, I think parents always mean well, like you just said earlier. Everybody wants the best for their kids, and we all have different things that we're passionate about and excited about. So there will be parents that come in with a great idea that can be a great idea and also not the right time, or it's a great idea, we don't have the right resources, or it's a great idea, but a big thing that I think all administrators are looking to protect is their teachers. Teachers are so overloaded, very overwhelmed. There's just so much for them to do. And I know, especially post-COVID and just still kind of like coming back from all that happened with COVID, it's just a real desire to protect their teachers' time and just their classroom environment and all their responsibilities. So
And their sanity.
exactly. So I think a big thing is just to know this is a great idea. We don't have the personnel. I can't put that on my teachers. So I think for parents, are you willing to say, like, I would love to take this and see what we could do? Or maybe you already know of one teacher that already has a real passion in this area, and they can kind of be your staff or, faculty that really is kind of a partner with you. But yeah, I think people come with ideas and sometimes they're great and they fit and it works. And then a lot of times it doesn't. But don't give up also, because you never know when opportunities are going to show up or when a school has, maybe a new strategic plan or new goals and objectives and focuses that they want to have that will align. So
I really like the emphasis on it's not necessarily a no, it might be a not yet. And I think that, whenever you're excited about something, you want to make it happen now. Believe me, I know, because I've had a flood of volunteers that have been asking if they can help, because everybody's all, very excited, and it's great. And we want to harness that. But understanding that when you go into a school that they already have a lot of responsibilities, they have their schedule planned out for the year. Adding something new can sometimes be difficult. But this is why I really want to talk to Alyssa, because Alyssa, we found Alyssa just weeks ago on a different webinar, and she started talking, and I said, oh my gosh, you have to come be a panelist, because she said, oh, she brought it to her principal and you got a big fat yes, Alyssa. So tell us a little bit about your background first, and then kind of what happened and how things went in that situation, because success stories are great to share.
Sure. So as you mentioned, I'm a substitute teacher, so I'm already kind of in the classroom, kind of seeing things go on. And I noticed that the kids, particularly at the elementary level, have a hard time figuring things out sometimes on the playground. In particular, they want to race to the teacher and like, so-and-so said this, or so-and-so did this, or so, and they're just like, well, did you talk to them? Did you use your words? Did you try to figure it out? So this got on my radar. I was like, oh, wow, I think this could be really good. And, I would love for my kids to just have more free play time too, and just be unstructured. And so when I emailed our principal about it, I kind of sent her the link, I think, to Let Grow, and said, I'm interested in starting a play club, and I would be, willing to coordinate it and run it once a week for an hour after school, basically same ratio as recess. So I wanted to find out from her, what is that ratio? What would that look like? What yard space do we have? Because we do co-locate with another school. And she said, yeah, let's have a meeting. So we met one-on-one and had a discussion. And I think one piece that was helpful in the discussion is kind of having some curiosity around it too. Like, we started talking about homework, and I discovered she really doesn't love homework either. So that's like,
I don't think most teachers, yeah.
So kind of just asking her, like, well, what conversations have already been happening around this, or with the head of the school or with the teachers and stuff. So kind of finding out a little bit more from her end, like, oh, okay, so there's already been a lot of thinking around this. So I think that was helpful too. And then of course just saying like, I'm happy to do it. I just need to know, what are the logistics here. And we talked a little bit about how to sign kids up and all that stuff, which will get more fleshed out next year. But it was cute. I was subbing for PE the other day and I was telling the kids, okay, we're gonna have some playtime, we're gonna have some free time, and I want to see how you guys play because I'm starting a play club next year. And the kindergartners were like, I want to be in the play club. So they're already getting excited.
I think that's great. Yeah, it's harder to say no when someone shows up with a full baked solution than you should do this and you figure out how to do it. That's just it's so crucial. I do want to bring something up that I thought of that would be good to share. There is a big difference between play club and recess. So some of what we hear sometimes is, why don't the kids have this for recess? Just have this free play at recess. Or we get the parents that are like, the kids don't get enough recess, which honestly, I think, Megan, do you agree? This is the problem: is there aren't enough hours in the day, and the things that people like Megan and teachers are, evaluated on, have nothing to do necessarily with what's really best for kids. I hate to say that, but it is kind of a true fact there. But recess is very different. Currently, a lot of recess that does happen is, I hate to say it, more like a prison yard, in that frequently the kids are like grouped by age, like you got to stay in this area, you can only play this game this way, and all of the rules are out. And the teacher's job, Megan, you'll have to correct me if I'm wrong, it's been a long time since I did recess duty, but the teacher's job was to always keep moving, so the kids didn't know where you were going to be next. And your job was to be looking out to try to nip in the bud any misbehavior or shenanigans, including, God forbid, climbing up the slide, exactly. So is that still when you were
I think that's true. And I think the purpose of that is because it is so short and there's a quick transition back to classroom.
Mm-hmm.
And if there are a lot of squabbles and problems, then that is going to affect the transition back to the class and the learning time.
Exactly.
So I did oversee our outdoor staff at one of my schools, and that was me. I was like, make sure you're moving, hearing what they're saying, kind of the opposite of a play club, to be honest.
It is.
And so, yes, you're right. I think you're right on with that.
Yeah. And it's not as easy as suddenly changing. That's the point, is you can't just say, oh, okay, all of a sudden we're going to get rid of all the rules and everybody will be fine. The difference with play club is elected.
Right.
You're not taking the entire school full of kids and throwing them out together, with no idea how to. Unfortunately, a lot of kids don't know how to play. So with play club, you're starting with some smaller groups. You're able to have parents elect. In most cases, schools don't charge for it, but that doesn't mean that they couldn't potentially. But because you sign up as a parent for your child to go to play club, part of what you're doing is you're agreeing to what are the really basic rules, which is children are not allowed to intentionally hurt another child or leave the premises without permission. That's basically the rules. But parents also get the information that when you sign up for play club, you need to understand that your child is going to occasionally be frustrated, possibly have a squabble, maybe come home and tell you that, oh, so-and-so hogged the ball and I didn't get my turn. And as much as a mom as you want to jump in and fix it for them, your job as a parent is to say, oh, and how did you handle that? Because that's what the lifeguards are doing when the kid comes up to tattle on somebody. And it's that self-selection that makes that work. And then the beauty of it is once you get more kids doing it, then that starts to permeate. And even kids who don't go to play clubs start to see that kind of behavior at recess or in the hallway. As a matter of fact, one of our teachers who started as a fourth grade teacher doing just one day a week, and he volunteered. That was 5 years ago. There are 13 volunteer teachers who are being the lifeguards before and after school. That is an endorsement if you've ever heard one. But what they found is even in the first year, even though only some of the kids went to play club, they had a 50% reduction in office referrals. Holy cow. There's a selling point, right? I do want to bring something up about the idea of kind of sales. And then we're going to go ahead and open it to questions. So any of you who want to ask questions, specific questions about how Play Club works or any of those types of things, please do put that in the Q&A. You can start typing those now. We'll make sure we get to them. Now I have to remember what it was I was about to tell. It's really hard when you get to a certain age and all of a sudden your brain goes off the tracks. I don't know if you've all seen that.
The sales.
Out. What's that, Megan?
The sales.
The sales. Thank you. See, that's what I needed. Okay. So I used to train salespeople. And so I want to give you all of you parents here some tips and tricks, because if you want to get something like this going at your school, that means you're going in as a salesperson. You are selling for Let Grow. Thank you very much. But there are some ways to go about it. We've already talked about building that relationship. It's really important that, you start out with at least, when I walk into Megan's office, I want to know that she recognizes my face and thinks positively of me, as opposed to possibly being, oh gosh, Megan, did you ever have one of those parents?
And you're exactly right, because when you see even their name on your calendar, it's like, okay, I wonder what's coming today. So yeah, it's delightful when you have the parents that are just supportive and partnering. That's always a real plus. And I also love what Alyssa said about the curiosity piece, to not come in with this like all this knowledge necessarily, but how, even just personally, how's your school year going? Or I really loved this event, or my student, is loving their teacher. Like, just connect and be curious about them and the school. But yeah, for sure, you want to be the parent that they're happy to see come in.
Exactly. So that's that relationship building. I can also tell you that when you're going in, you should have some information. You should have visited our Play Club page and at least have a little bit of understanding of what Play Club is, so that you're not going in completely blind. Because if you go in not knowing what you're talking about, principal's going to figure that out pretty darn quickly and kind of wonder, like, well, if you haven't looked into it that carefully, why are you recommending it? What is it you're talking about? So do take advantage of the resources and share those resources in a way that allows the administrator to take some time on their own to digest. I think that being able to say, hey, there's this really cool thing going on. I would love to talk to you about it. But here's where I got the information, because guess what? Let Grow's worked very hard on our website to try to address all of the potential things that come up for educators when they visit our school program pages. Not only will we hopefully be able to kind of give them resources and answer questions they don't know they have yet, but it also means that if they fill out the form to get the free school program guides, they get connected with Jen Sullivan, our school programs director, and they get to have a conversation where they get some support and they can ask their questions of us. So you don't have to close the sale. You need to get the initial introduction and then pass them off to Let Grow and let us handle the logistics and the things, like if they're going to ask a question about, what about liability and insurance? You don't want to have that conversation as a parent. You want somebody, make sure that you're using that kind of sales technique of butter them up a little bit, give them some information. I love Megan's suggestion about what else is going on and how Alyssa ended up with a conversation discovering that, homework was already kind of being talked about. Gee, Wow, by the way, if you haven't, and well, Alyssa, you're doing both, right? You're going to start a play club and the experience. Awesome. So
Yeah.
the experience is a homework assignment. So it's like, okay, great. If I'm going to assign homework, let's make it be something like, do something new. And so the kid goes home and makes a grilled cheese sandwich, and that's their homework. They get just as much out of it.
Yeah,
So
we're hoping to maybe replace some of the traditional homework with the Let Grow experience
exactly.
play club. So yeah, hopefully
Yeah.
kind of minimizing. And I was going to mention too, a part-time administrator at school who's also a friend of mine. She's very interested in and so I kind of paired up with her, and so that worked well too. And so if you find a teacher or an administrator, even if they're not the principal, that's like, ooh, I'm really into this, that can be helpful to kind of pair up with them, and they kind of do the staff admin side and kind of doing the parent facing side.
Yeah, no, that's excellent advice. Getting kind of your people together is a great idea. Having a group of volunteers, PTAs and PTOs sometimes even run play clubs. But again, think about being the salesperson and not walking in and scaring somebody off. Don't show up with 5 parents knocking on the principal's door unexpected, telling, oh, you've got to do this. However, coming in and saying, we want to do it makes a huge difference. So, I will say there are a number of questions that are coming in. I'm going to throw out just a couple things that I see that are real high level. What kind of budget is required? There is no budget required. This should not cost you anything. Now, that being said, depending on your school, if they choose to insist that they have a teacher be a certified employee, be one of the supervisors. They may want to pay them some kind of stipend. That's completely up to them. We don't make any recommendations. As I mentioned, the big one that I talked about that's been doing it for years, they all volunteer. And so it may be something like, costs for buy some extra hula hoops or loose parts. But for the most part, what we find is they've got the playground, they've got the empty space, they're in the gym if it rains. Frequently, they can use, with permission from the PE teacher, things like hoops and cones and buckets and all of those kinds of things. Or they can bring their own loose parts if you want to have kids, hey, everybody, we're going to do a cardboard day, bring in cardboard boxes. They have a ball with that kind of stuff, and then recycle them afterwards. Also, I will tell you that the Play Club implementation guide for schools has a different kind of set of instructions than the one that you get as a parent that a lot of you have gotten. And also tell you that that particular guide right now is about 5 or 6 pages. Most of it is very flexible and up to the schools because everybody is different. But we do have a new collection of materials that Jen will be working on and will have before school starts. That is a much more expanded collection of materials that schools can use that will include things like suggested ways to do sign-up pages and emails and posters and all of those kinds of things. So do keep an eye out. We're working on those kinds of materials so that makes it as easy as we can. At this point, I'm going to go to some questions that Jen is passing along to me. So let's take these and we'll see what we can help with. Okay, let's see. First one has to do with sizes, advice on starting size, as in, do you start with 10 kids and 2 adults, or what ratios do you advise? And Alyssa, you did mention ratios. Would you kind of give us a little advice of how you decided where you'll start next year?
Sure. I asked the principal and she said their ratio for recess is 1 adult to 30 kids. Now, she did say that that's ages 5 and up. So if you have 4-year-olds like TK, then that would make your ratio for California lower down to 1 to 12. So I'm saying, okay, it's just going to be 5 and up. Sorry, TK. And then, so my thinking is to start with 90 kids, but maybe that's too crazy. But I'm also like, the crazy mom and Girl Scout leader. So
Megan,
better start with 1 and 30 kids, or 2 and 60, or so. So maybe 2 and 60 would be better, but I kind
I
of just
do recommend that no matter what, and this goes for parents who want to start your own play clubs in your neighborhoods too. You should always have two adults, just because if something happens, because kids do fall and things happen, you want to have one adult that can take care of the child and the other adult stays with the rest of the kids. So that's definitely something to consider. But it is a good idea to start with what is their ratio for recess. They may not have to or have to be bound by those rules for an after school club, but it is a good place to start. And while I would say you don't necessarily need a lot of supervisors, if you have a few extra, that's okay, so long as everybody stands back and doesn't jump in. I would actually say that the difference for play club is you want them to stay in one place. And the four of them, two, four, whatever, they're welcome to talk to each other. That's okay too, which is frowned upon for teachers, by the way. We're not supposed to be standing out there chatting. But the idea is the kids know where to find you, because if there is a real problem that happens, they will come find you, just like they would at home. They know where mom is. They're going to come tell mom if there's something really going on. So I think that's great. Another question, let's see, I think we already kind of covered advice on norms and rules that parents agree to. It is primarily that, we don't lay this all out. Maybe we will have to in the new play club. But you don't call Joey's mom because your kid comes home and says Joey knocked you off of the swing or something, which, something blatant. You take the kids aside for a little while and make them sit out. I mean, it is possible to be kicked out of play club if they're breaking those rules. But basically, it's really a matter of the parents are understanding that their kids are going to be kids and they're going to play, and most of them come home higher than a kite, I have to tell you, even if they do have a squabble or two. I've heard parents tell me that their kids get along better at home after being in play club because they start figuring out that they don't have to go to mom as the arbitrator for everything.
Well, you know what I find interesting, because I was basically in a mini play club after school today because so many of our families, we have a playground right next to our school after dismissal. And I find that for me, I'm more inclined to get involved because I'm watching my kid be the one that is maybe being selfish or is withholding.
But what you're saying is it's
ball.
hard to stay back.
Yeah. And so I was going to suggest too, maybe have a designated place. Like, okay, any parents or volunteers, we're going to be at the tables.
Mm-hmm.
Just maybe make it really explicitly clear that this is where we are. Students, come get us if you need us. We'll be over here. Mm-hmm. So maybe if it's spoken and clarified, people will be less tempted to move over and be a part of that action.
And I do say, somebody else made the comment that they're gathering, it doesn't need to be connected to a school. No, play clubs could be handled. Parents can run play clubs in a park. Boys and Girls Club could do it. YWCA. I mean, there are all kinds of options. And it can also be something a little less formal. I think if you start out with parents at a park, most parents might be a little nervous about leaving their child. I get that. Work up to that though, because boy, if you can take turns being the lifeguard, and when you're not the lifeguard, you've got time to run errands or something, jump on that. But basically, the idea that you have to kind of keep your back and let them be, because it is very hard as a parent not to jump in, but it is critical that you don't. Because these kids aren't getting that after school play that previous generations had, where they did figure things out for them. And so this is an attempt to give them back some of that, definitely. Okay, another question. Can parents oversee these clubs, or do you really need to find a staff member willing to do it? Every school is different. It really comes down to, if you want to use the school grounds, and there's huge appeal in school grounds because the school's already there. The kids are already there. So before and after school are just a really natural extension of the school day. And if you're doing that, you do have to ask permission to use the school grounds. So obviously, you do need to kind of go through the school. It's kind of sad, but a lot of schools, especially newer, I mean, you can't even get on the school grounds when the school's closed. So there's obviously a little bit of give and take that has to happen there, but some schools will be just fine having a volunteer being in charge. Some may assign somebody. It's, after school clubs happen in all other kinds of ways. So play club isn't really significantly different than a running club or whatever else, the types of things the kids are signing up for, and parents are trusting the school to take care of them after school or during those clubs. More questions. Is this play group for elementary school? Wondering if play clubs are in place in middle schools. Not sure if that's a tougher one to sell. You guys have any thoughts on middle schools? Because I've got an answer, but I don't want to,
I mean, I used to teach at middle school. I'm not there so much now, but I think it would be awesome. I don't know if this is happening in your neighborhood, but lately, it appears all middle school boys are on e-bikes, popping wheelies, like without helmets. And it's kind of really frightening. I don't know if this is happening everywhere.
It's happening here all the time. Yes.
And
crazy.
I'm like, these kids need, it's that risky play that Jonathan Haidt talks about, but this is beyond risky. This is like going to bash your head into the asphalt. Kind of play. So yeah, I think it's needed.
Yeah.
What I would say is needed, what I noticed, because we actually live at the end of a street of a middle school, is that bell rings, heads are down, and they're just like into that digital world. And so just that alternative of socializing in an open-ended environment with each other. And I know that it might not be typical that most middle schools don't even have a playground anymore. They have just a blacktop and kids hang out,
or a field.
But if you're at public parks, you notice like those are the kids that love to get up and run around and be just super imaginative even. And so I think it's a great idea, and I think they would really enjoy it.
Definitely. And I can say that we do have some schools that are talking about trying it at their middle schools. And I'm really excited. There's a private school here in Las Vegas that I visited that built a small, it's not really a playground. It's kind of it's a shaded area with some seating and stuff, but they're giving their middle schoolers recess, which I fully applaud. So certainly it could be done. We see it done. Play clubs exist for some sporting organizations. There's a soccer group called Steel Sports, and all of their soccer practices now start with like 20 minutes of free play. And even the high schoolers are making up their own silly games. So everybody needs it, which is great. Mixed age, recommended age mixes. Whatever you've got, I would say at least 3 years or 3 grade levels. I know there are people who really worry, oh, what's going to happen? My first grader or my kindergartner is so small, and that big 5th grader, and they're worried about bad influences and stuff. And obviously we can't make any guarantees, but what we see pretty much across the board is that having those mixed ages benefits everybody, because the younger kids want to act older because they want to get the attention of the older kids. And so the older kids are noticing that, well, the younger kids are looking up to them, so they tend to behave a little bit better. You'll see some wonderful pairing of, a 2nd and a 3rd grader, because there's a mature 2nd grader and maybe a little more immature 3rd grader. They connect, and now they've got a friend that they don't see in the classroom. And there's also nothing better. The story I heard from one teacher talking about a play club and how cool it was when they were walking down the hallway in their lines and in their 1st grade class, and one of a 5th grader walked by and said hi. Just how puffed up and excited that younger kid was. So you can go K5. Again, it's going to depend on what works, but I would say at least a few years. And don't be afraid of mixing it up and putting, say, 1st and 2nd with a 4th and 5th, or if you're doing it multiple days a week, you might have some different kind of mixes in there. I think you'll find it really is a benefit for everybody. Okay, let's see what else. Lots more questions. How do you suggest pitching this if the school already has a pretty busy schedule or of after-school enrichment classes and general aftercare open play? One of you guys want to address that?
Well, I think you could go a couple different ways. There may be after school programs provided. Those are typically paid programs. So one way to spin this is just to really emphasize the no budget needed, low cost, and that it's a free opportunity for parents to just have their student enjoy that open-ended play. And again, the phrase there was after school programs. So that's great. You're in an art class or you're in a robotics class or whatever it is. Those are those structured, supervised environments. So I would really emphasize that this is unsupervised, that we're really trying to create a place for our students to practice all of what they're hearing from their teachers. You know, there's a big push on all campuses for whatever the character traits are or their positive behavior intervention structures at schools. And so really, we want to just create a space where kids can go enjoy one another and have an open-ended time to go practice all this that they're learning. So I think those are two things that come to my mind.
Mm-hmm. Alyssa?
Yeah, I was thinking we do have what's called extended day, and it is fee-based. I think goes till like maybe 6 p.m. My kids haven't been part of it, so I'm not personally that familiar with it. But I know that when we have other enrichment programs after school, it's open to those kids too, and they just come from extended day, they go to the program, and then they go back to extended day until like 6 p.m. or 5:30, whatever the pickup time is. So my hope is that it will still be available to all the kids, whether or not they're in a program already or not. And then the parent can just choose, you know, oh, they actually get enough, you know, free play time at extended day, so I don't need them to go to this once a week play club. Or they actually think, oh, you know what, I would really like for them to have a little bit more free play time than what they're already getting at their after school program. I want them to go to this. And then when it wraps up at 4, they go back to their, you know, paid program. So
yeah. And it's really a matter of supply and demand. I think that you definitely want to have things that maybe kids who couldn't normally can't get the after school or the enrichment. And actually, it's interesting when you talk about the different demographics of kids. I think in a lot of cases, some of the kids who are, you know, the Title I kids, the lower income, they're already usually more responsible because they have to take care of themselves after school. Some of them almost need this more than anybody else. Giving them an opportunity to play with other kids and just have fun is really important. Obviously, we don't have every answer for every situation, but it does become something that, you know, have a conversation. I mean, I suppose there could be cases where somebody says, well, no, absolutely, we can't offer anything because that would be in competition with so-and-so. And that's really sad. But at that point, then I'd be like, okay, well, gee, a group of parents is going to do it at the park next door because you can't keep us from doing that. And, you know, see where that goes. So let's see, what else do we see? Do you recommend meeting with parents who have enrolled their kids in play club before starting play club? I don't know. I think it kind of depends on how your school works and how you have them kind of sign up for clubs. I think that part of what will be, especially in our new package, will be some more ready-made send home materials, because parents need to understand why it's almost more, why is this important, that the parents need to hear sometimes is okay, wait a minute, aren't they just wasting time? Wouldn't it be better if they were in Kumon or learning Mandarin? And the answer is no, they need to learn social skills and all of these things. So being able to, you know, use the resources again that Let Grow has, will be definitely having things like notes you can send home and links, show them this video, show them, you know, send them to Let Grow too. And I think you'll find they'll join in. And if they're not comfortable with it, they don't have to sign up. It's optional, right? You're not forcing this on anybody. So having a meeting beforehand, I would say, would be up to you. I think if back to school night, maybe, Megan, what would you say about a way to maybe kind of get parents on board with this?
Yeah, if the principal or site administrator was okay with that, you could definitely do a, 20-minute before back to school night or some type of a school event, or a before school meetup or after school meetup. I just, on my own, because I'm someone that just loves to build community and connection, I've been a room parent for a couple of years, and so I've just created a WhatsApp group and invited any parent that wants to join so that as we go through elementary school together, we can just have some community. So
Great.
even if it's on your own, whether it's text messaging or word of mouth, just to tell people, hey, we're all going to gather here and start some conversations there. But also, I think that when a play club starts and their student maybe starts to see it or hear about it and then tell their parents, that's also going to be a great way to get the word out too. And I agree with what you just said, because kids are so overbooked and all they really want to do is play. Because, you ask kid, what's your favorite subject in school? And while it is supervised, oftentimes the answer
It's
is recess.
recess.
And so to just give them time and space, just be a kid and go play and not have it be about any type of thing that's going to get them into Harvard later, is just really refreshing. So I think they'll be drawn to it.
That's great. Another question. This is a really good question and something that we probably should have covered a little bit earlier. What sort of training needs to happen with the kids to break the habit of going straight to the teacher with everything? Well, let me tell you, it doesn't take long. There is no training of the kids. The first day of play club, certainly you will explain what play club is and explain that, look, we're not going to solve your disagreements. If you have an issue or, something that you're having an argument about, you're going to have to work it out by yourself. And inevitably, kids will come to the teachers in those first few days. They're going to show up. And when they come up, and we have some training for the teachers, we'll have some videos in the new packet. Currently, we've got some, tips and stuff. But it's really a matter of training the lifeguard. When a child comes up and says, so-and-so did such and such, there are a couple of phrases. One is, okay, thank you for telling me. What are you going to do about it? And the kid's usually like, I don't know. Well, what could you do? And the other one I love, and I didn't come up with this came from another teacher. They use, is this an adult problem or a kid problem? And that phrase, I think, isn't that wonderful? Is it an adult problem or a kid problem? And most kids will go, it's a kid problem. And so once they figure out that you are not going to engage, solve the problem, step in, they'll probably look at you like you're crazy. But they won't stay there long because they're missing the fun and they know it. And what you find is pretty quickly kids figure this out. We do have kind of an optional, not sure if we like it, not sure if we don't, kind of conflict corner type of thing that you can do, where if you do have a disagreement, you send the two kids, like, okay, we'll go over to the conflict corner. And really the conflict corner is you guys figure it out. And once you figure it out, shake hands and whatever. Well, again, the kids figure out pretty quickly they don't need to go to the conflict corner. They can do it right where they're at, take care of the problem, and move on. We also see that their bullying is actually not a real big problem because, again, the kids have chosen. And if you do get a kid, one play club, they let a bully join because this was a kid who they tried all kinds of interventions, and he's just poor kid. They just couldn't seem to help him with anything. And everybody was a little nervous the first day this kid showed up at play club. They did it, but play club had been going on. So all of the other kids were very well versed in how this all worked. And, it was a matter of he kind of stood there and most of the other kids just kind of ignored him and he wasn't getting any attention. And somebody finally kind of kicked a ball over his way and he kicked it back, and that was all it took. All of a sudden he started playing, his behavior and everything completely changed because whatever was happening inside that was making him a bully, he made some friends and he started to feel that self-worth. So it was wonderful. It is 5:01, so I'm sure some people will be dropping off. We'll stay on and answer some more questions. And just a reminder too, that if we get a lot of similar questions, we'll try to address some of those also in our email that we send out. And if it turns out we have enough interest, we may do a follow-up webinar at some other point in the future. Some other questions, there's so many. is Play Club a formal designation? If it's more informal, what are the conditions for the use? Oh, to use the Let Grow moniker. Well, here's the thing. Play Club, it's not rocket science. We didn't make anything up. We do, however, really encourage you to use the Let Grow name. We also are happy to provide you with copies of our logo. Some of our new materials will work on having some templates for like emails to parents and those kinds of things. We want you to share the name, not because, we're a nonprofit and we don't charge for any of this, but the donors who give us the money so that we can make these things happen like to know that we're making an impact. And so the more the Let Grow name, mission, philosophy becomes common in our society, really the better for us, the better for society. It turns into, okay, let go and let grow. Oh yeah, I know what that means. So that's definitely something you're welcome to do. And we're happy to provide you with those kinds of opportunities and those kinds of resources. Okay, let's see. Here's someone who's just sharing, I love this, about teens doing this. Yes, this is awesome. So this person is a social worker at a district in Utah, says, I started an after-school mixed ages play club with middle and high schoolers that meets every Monday. That's great because that's another possibility for lifeguards. Bring in the high school kids. There are kids who would love to do those kinds of things. It could be part of a community service project for them. You could give them some training. You might give them credit. I mean, there's all kinds of amazing ways to make these things happen. And that's the beauty of it. It's so flexible. The only thing we really insist on is don't interfere with the kids. As soon as you start organizing games or teaching them things, you have now completely lost the entire point of Play Club. So that would be the biggest thing that I would say. Somebody else asked about insurance. I will tell you that for most cases, the beauty of doing it at a school is all of their insurance generally covers any before and after school clubs. Megan, would you confirm that for me?
I would say that that's probably a district by district, school by school when it comes to private schools, public schools, all of that. So I don't know that there would be a general all-encompassing answer, but I think what you're saying is probably accurate for public schools, but that would probably be a good question to ask in that meeting with the principal.
Yeah. On the one hand, you shouldn't worry about it because, kids do stay after school and before school. And generally, those kinds of liability issues, the policies that are required, certainly for public schools, are generally enough coverage. What I can tell you is I can't give you insurance advice. Every situation, as Megan said, is different. We do have one of our resources is an FAQ interview with a superintendent who has had Play Club in both districts that he's been the head of, and he kind of answers that question in that similar fashion, that is generally not something that should get in the way of having the Play Club.
Andrea, kind of related to that, I know there's a student agreement and parent agreement. Oftentimes, especially in elementary, we see permission slips. Is the agreement something that you would say parents should be ready, that we just make that aware, or do you have a signed form or anything like that? Or is it just more of a, if you come, we all are agreeing to these norms?
That's a good question, because I think in some cases, we recommend that they sign the pledge. It's part of their registration, and ask them to actually sign something. It's fairly loose, it's just basically saying, look, I understand that my child will be loosely supervised, but safety is always important, and kind of lay that out. I think others may make it just be, hey, if you signed up for it, if you signed your child up for this, you are agreeing to. But I think those are also things that most schools will have to consider on their own. It's hard to provide. We can provide templates, and we expect to do some of that. But because everybody's different. Alyssa, do you know, you maybe haven't even addressed this as to how you're going to do this yet?
No, but one thing we have talked about is the potential issue of people picking up their kids late. So
That's always a concern, isn't
so we have already kind of thought about maybe some language and real clear expectations up front. Like, first time you pick up your kid late, it'll be a gentle reminder. The second time, might be you're out for the rest of that session or whatever.
it?
So
Right.
I've been kind of thinking about that because especially since it's free, I don't want to be there for an extra half an hour waiting for someone to show up to pick up their kid. So that is one thing I've thought about. But no, we haven't talked specifically about permission slips per se.
The other thing I will mention is that some of our play clubs that have been most successful started with the before school. The school that's such a huge play club now, that's what the teachers started, because the kids basically had to come in the building when they got there, sit with their backs against the wall in the hallway, and they really weren't allowed to talk or do anything, which is just awful. You couldn't make me do that. And so they started with some before school. So they might drop them off early. All of a sudden, kids, by the way, also this can help with absenteeism. Attendance goes up because kids are like, oh, I want to be there for play club. So yeah, that's a good thing to think about, Alyssa. And I think it's also something that schools are already a little familiar with handling if they've already got other after school activities. That is always a risk. Hopefully not enough to keep people from doing it though. All right, let's see if I have any other questions. Got the teens. Somebody says, what about really offensive words? Is there any intervention? Again, common sense must prevail. And I would say that that's going to be up to an individual school and or teacher. We don't want kids using that kind of language. We certainly discourage those kinds of things. So that would be something that I would say you would have to deal with on a case-by-case basis and kind of impose what needs to be imposed as it comes up. It's really unfortunate, but kids say some of these words in the middle of school and in the hallway and at PE and at recess. It's really hard to police those kinds of things. I would say if you had some individual child who was a regular problem, then you're going to deal with that individually and impose maybe some of the consequences like you would for them being late, or you may have to kick a kid out of play club. I've never heard of it happening. That doesn't mean it. I mean, I don't know what all goes on. But what happens for most kids is they are having so much fun that they recognize that they don't want to jeopardize their ability to be there. And that's actually a really important lesson. It's kind of how society works. We all kind of agree to get along, sometimes more than others, but that's what we're all doing. We're all basically saying, hey, I'm going to follow these norms. I know you're going to follow these norms. We're going to get along and everybody will be happy. And we want that to continue because we like life to be nice and pleasant and easy. So this is really some of what they're learning. Well, any last remarks from either one of you before we close things up here?
I was just going to say too, I feel like as important as to talk with your principal, I'm also framing it as a parent culture shift. So I'm doing a lot of just reaching out to parents directly that I know. And like, is it okay if your kid walks home with my kid by themselves? And, my Girl Scout troop, for the first time, they all walked by themselves the 3 blocks to the troop meeting. And so I've been kind of doing that more, just what can I do with the parents that I know and my kids' friends? Mm-hmm. And hopefully that will, keep spreading, whatever. But I think you can have a lot of impact just with your sphere of influence. And you don't have to feel like it has to go through the principal necessarily.
Absolutely. I love that as a parting thought. Megan?
Mine would just be that, when we think about starting something new and when we think about culture and kids and all anxious generation topics, it's easy to get really overwhelmed and to maybe hesitate or hold back, or even think of what we were talking about earlier with, well, what about the what ifs? What about the kid that does that or that? I think we really want to model for our kids how to believe the best in each other and how to be hopeful and optimistic and know that we it's going to be great. And just to speak that and to set that tone. And so even if anyone here is considering maybe approaching someone, just choose to have a mindset that is, you never know. Let's see what happens and hope for the best in each other and in the play club in general.
I love it. So for those of you who have hung with us, quite a few of you, we're going to close this up. I will, first of all, make a recommendation. If you have not discovered it, we do have a Facebook group. It's a public group. It's called Raising Independent Kids. There are a lot of wonderful folks in there talking about all kinds of things. That is a great place to go if you want to meet other parents who are raising their kids in a similar fashion, possibly connect with some folks in your area. We do not have a directory, nor do we have a magic app that can tell you that, hey, I want to meet Alyssa to go play with her, have our kids play. But you can connect in the Facebook group and you can make those efforts within your own community, which helps us build community trust, something we need, I think, in this country. And also know, little sneak preview, in 2025, we're going to probably have a brand new community programs kind of DIY kit for parents to kind of build a let grow atmosphere or culture within your community. We're working on that. It's going to take us a while, but we're excited to have that happen. We'll send you these links. We have some tips on the website, so you can go back and look at some of these again. Megan was nice enough to help us create that. And I cannot recommend enough, go to our website. There's lots of good stuff there, and you can use it and you can spread the word to other parents. Thank you so much, ladies. This was wonderful. I very much appreciate you being here, bringing your perspectives. Maybe we'll have you on again sometime. And those of you who joined us, thank you so much for spending some of your time with us. We hope that you bring Let Grow into your own home, into your own community. And if you're going to try to bring it into your schools, do it with relationship and curiosity. Have a wonderful evening. Bye, everybody.